After the Ottawa versus Cavlary game last night, we are now at the point in the 2023 Canadian Premier League season where every single team has played at least 14 games, which means we are officially at the halfway mark of the 2023 Canadian Premier League season. And like I did a quarter of the way through, it's time to recap how the second quarter of the CPL season went. Overall, a lot more interesting of a second quarter than the first quarter. Well, the first quarter saw the majority of matches end in a draw and a lot of low-scoring games. The second quarter of the season has seen an increase in both goals and an increase in non-drawn games, which has just led for a far more exciting quarter and for the playoff race to get spiced up. So here's how every team is faring halfway through the season. In 8th and last place in the league, we have Vancouver FC. The new expansion side was always going to struggle a bit off the bat, but I think the struggling is a bit worse than some people expected. The team has some exciting pieces. Sean Hundle scoring 6 goals. TJ Tahid at 16 years old has come in, scored 2 goals. He is a very bright young player in the Canadian Premier League, and as a neutral, he is the best part of watching Vancouver FC this season. But overall, the team is just not very good. Offensively, they have picked up from the first quarter. They only had 4 goals in the first quarter of the season. They have 9 goals in the second quarter of the season. But despite that, they still have the second worst offense in the league overall. Their defense also hasn't been as stingent as it was in the first quarter of the season. They only allowed 9 goals in the first 7 games, whereas they've allowed 14 in the next 7. So a team where, well, the offense has picked up, the defense has slowed down a bit, which is resulting in, well, they have gotten 1 more win. The draws have completely drawn off. Now, the offense question may be solved on this horizon, as they've announced that Alejandro Diaz, the Golden Boot winner from the 2022 Canadian Premier League season, who won the Golden Boot despite being shipped out of the league 2/3 of the way through the season last year, is joining Vancouver FC on loan. So the addition of Alejandro Diaz means that this Vancouver offense just got scary. However, is it too little too late in the season for them to significantly turn things around in time to make a playoff run? Only time will tell. In 7th place, we have Valour FC. Now, Valour is in a very weird spot, as defensively, they are the best team in the league. Only 14 goals against through 14 games. Defensively, they are incredibly strong. The problem is, offensively, they are terrible. Only 11 goals for in 14 matches this season for Valour. They cannot buy a goal. And somehow their offense has gotten worse, scoring only 4 goals in the last 7 games. This is a team that desperately needs something to change up front, because with the way they play defensively and structurally, if they just get some goals, they are in a playoff spot. They're one of the better teams in the league. But scoring as little as they have, they are taking the best defense in the league and currently sitting outside a playoff spot with it. There still is time, especially in the mid-season transfer window, for them to go out, get some offense, but if nothing changes on the offensive front, they are going to flounder and miss the playoffs. In 6th place, we have Atletico Ottawa. Now, Atletico Ottawa has had a massive turnaround from their first 7 games of the season. At the end of the first quarter of the season, Atletico Ottawa was on pace exactly for FC Edmonton's 2022 season results. A quarter of the way through the season, Ottawa was on pace for that. They've picked it up massively, winning 4 of the last 7 matches, and both their team offense and defense have improved in that time. Ollie Bassett continues to be a weapon in the Canadian Premier League. He's scored 7 goals so far this season, which put him tied for first in the Golden Boot race. And behind him, Ottawa has a solid mix of depth offense with a couple guys on 3 goals, a couple guys on 2 goals. They have a solid mix of offense behind Ollie Bassett. However, it would be nice if Sam Salter could pitch in a few more goals here or there. Now, the team did make a big splash signing Alberto Zapater. Zapater, the 38-year-old Spanish midfielder, is the highest profile inbound signing the Canadian Premier League has ever had. And he's a guy who should give Ottawa some much needed experience and stability in the midfield going forward through the season. If Ottawa keeps this pace up, they should easily make the playoffs, but if they have another down stretch like they did in the first quarter of the season, they could be in trouble. In 5th place right now is the Halifax Wanderers. What a turnaround. In the first quarter of the season, Halifax was winless through 7. They had 6 draws, but they were winless through 7, sitting second last in the league, ahead of only Ottawa at that point. On June 10th, they had their first win at home versus Valour, and they have just been unstoppable since then. then. 4-1-2 in their last 7 games. This has been a very good stretch for the Wanderers, led by an explosion in offense, as defensively they allowed 9 goals in the first quarter of the season, they've allowed 9 goals in the second quarter of the season, but offensively they've gone from 6 goals in the first quarter to 12 goals in the second quarter, doubling their offensive production from the first 7 matches. And it's been done completely by committee. No player has more than 3 goals for the Wanderers, but they have 5 guys sitting on 3 goals, which is a very large amount. Great team scoring going on. And on top of that, they just got João Morelli back from injury, where if Morelli could come back from injury and re-find his 2021 form where he won the Golden Boot in the CPL, all of a sudden now Halifax has an X factor and a team that's playing very, very well, just got that much better. If their form keeps up and if João Morelli can re-find his personal form, Halifax could end up a top 3 team in the league this season. 4th is York United. Now York is still the hardest team to gauge in the Canadian Premier League this season. 3-2-3 in their last 8. Them and Forge both have 1 extra game, so are both sitting on 15, so I'm tracking them in terms of 8 games instead of 7. York is either great or they're terrible, depending on the game. Like, there is no in between. York is either winning and being the far better team doing it, or getting completely outplayed. Overall, they have the 2nd worst defense in the league and the 3rd worst offense, which them being in 4th with those 2 stats do not track. However, once you consider that when they lose, they get blown out every once in a while, those big losses that really blow out that stat out of proportion. Osaze de Rosario, after not having a single goal through the first quarter, has scored 2 goals now on the season. So he is starting to get on the scorecard, but he still is far behind what was expected of him this season. Add in that Brian Wright also has not scored, and Mo Babuli, well, with 4 goals, is leading the team, has had some injury problems and some suspension problems throughout the season. York is in a situation where their top scoring guys just aren't getting the job done for them at the level that they would want them to. If they can get De Rosario and Wright scoring and keep Babuli in the lineup, this team is looking really good. But they need all 3 of those things to happen. I mean, at least they need one of De Rosario or Wright to score at least the pace they scored at last season. Like last season, Wright had 7 goals and De Rosario had 12. So off of their last season paces, those 2 guys you should be getting 19 goals out of. So far, halfway through the season, you've gotten a total of 2. That right there is just a massive fall off for York, and the fact that, like, with that expected goals they still are where they are in the standings is kind of incredible. Overall though, the team just needs to find consistency. Like, the 2 things they need the most are get those guys on track and get some consistency. If those 2 things happen, they should easily be a playoff team. They should easily be a league contender. But if they can't find either of those 2 things, especially with the way that Halifax and Ottawa have been playing, if they can't find consistency, I could easily see them dropping out of the playoffs. In 3rd place, we have Cavlary. Now, Cavlary's in a weird position where their goal spread throughout their lineup is actually like exactly the same as Ottawa's. They have Meyer Bevan, who's tied for the Golden Boot race with 7 goals, and then they have 2 guys with 3 goals, 2 guys with 2 goals, and then several guys with 1 goal. So like literally the exact same goal distribution as Ottawa. So the offense is fine for Cavlary. On top of that, defensively, they're decent too. Like, Cavlary is just a team where, like, they're decent offensively, decent defensively, like nothing's really wrong with the team. However, losing Cantave does hurt the offense, as he is one of the guys who's on 3 goals for the team. So the depth scoring after Meyer Bevan does take a bit of a hit with Cantave leaving. Also, losing Jose Escalante on loan does hurt the team overall going forward for the remainder of the season. Yes, they got Niall Henry back for Cantave, and yes, he will help with the U21 minutes, but for right now, for a team that is in a playoff spot right now and contending in this season, they need something more immediate for a replacement for Cantave and Escalante. They are still, I think, a piece away from being a true contender, especially like if Joe Mason comes back to form, he can be that guy, but with Joe Mason nowhere near his 2021 form, with losing Escalante and Cantave, right now they're a team that they just need something else to really, in my mind, solidify themselves as a true contender for the CPL championship this season. In 2nd place, we have Forge. Now, Forge, so frustrating for me because in my first quarter reaction, I called Forge unbeatable. Like, at that point, they were 4-3-0. They had not lost a game. They looked unbeatable almost. And immediately after I called them that, they fell off a cliff. Only winning 2 and losing 5 of their last 8 games, Forge fell off a cliff, went through a 5-game period where they only scored 2 goals, and just had a terrible segment to the season. However, it looks like that 5-game downturn, they might be coming out of it, because after a 5-game stretch where they only scored 2, they've scored 9 goals in their last 3, including 2 games where they won, scoring 4 goals apiece in each of them. Now, for Forge, this type of fall off is not unheard of. In 2022, last season, in late August to early September, they did have another stretch where, like this stretch, they went 5 games where they only drew 1, lost 4, only scored 2 goals, had 3 straight goalless games. So it's not unheard of for Forge to have a really, really bad stretch in a season. The question is can they bounce out of it? And can they stay out of that rut? Because again, some of the teams coming up behind them, another rut like that, and all of a sudden you're potentially out of the playoff places. And like with the CPL season only being 28 games, 2 5-game ruts where you don't win, that's basically half your season. So Forge is in a place where like they cannot fall into another rut like that. They need to get back to form and keep back in form for the remainder of the season, or else any hope of them winning a 4th title is just out the window, as they'll just have shown that the consistency just is not there and that they're a team too susceptible to falling into ruts where they just cannot score. So keep out of the rut and you're a contender like you always have been. If you fall back into it, that's when things get dangerous. Although I should note, despite the goal scoring rut, Taryn Campbell did score a hat trick against York United last weekend, which puts them up to 7 goals, which ties them in the Golden Boot race of Ollie Bassett and Meyer Beaven. Taryn Campbell's a guy who, like, he is the league's top scorer. He's consistently been near the top of the scoring tables since the league started in 2019, yet he's never won a Golden Boot. So for him to be right back in the Golden Boot race, it's nice to see a guy who consistently has been one of the CPL's better scorers in the Golden Boot race yet again. And finally, in first place is Pacific FC. Now, Pacific looks really good. 25 goals for, best offense in the league, 15 goals against, one of the better defenses in the league. And they're doing it scoring by committee. Amer Didic as a defenseman, Easton Ongaro and Armin Salouf all have 4 goals for the team, which puts Pacific at the most number of players of 4 or more goals. Follow that up, Aparicio and Sean Young both have 3. So this has been a fantastic score by committee team, as you have a lot of guys scoring quite a good, solid number of goals in this league. All around, Pacific is just the best team in the league. Like, they're strong in every position, forward, midfield, defense. Like, you cannot point at a role right now and you say Pacific is like lacking in the midfield or lacking at forward or lacking at defense. They're just strong everywhere. The addition of Salouf is absolutely huge. He's been great. Easton Ongaro, I criticized him for only having 1 goal in the first 7 games. He's picked it right back up. He's up to 4 now in the season. He's been solid. Like, Pacific right now looks like the odds-on favorite to go and win the championship. They are just so good right now. And Amer Didic too, like, anchoring the 2nd strongest defense in the league and scoring 4 goals on top of that. Like, Amer Didic is a star in this league, and I'd be shocked if he's not the front runner for Defender of the Year right now. He has been so good. So Pacific is in first place halfway through the season, and you cannot say they don't deserve it. So that is how every team in the CPL is looking halfway through the season. As always, let me know down below in the comments how you feel the CPL season's going, what teams you think are going to have runs going into the second half, what teams you think are going to fall off going into the second half. And as always, if you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, link is down below in the description, and I will see you next time.